Welcome to another episode of the STR Sisterhood. I'm your host, Stacey St. John, and I am so grateful to be spending some time with you today. Thanks so much for having me into your day. Now, I am sitting down with the one and only Cara Margraf, but before we dive into our conversation, I want to share a quote that I recently read that resonated with me. And it says, "There is no right way to be. I am flawed and imperfect, but am uniquely me." And those beautiful words come to us from actress Leah Remini. Now, when we sat down, Cara and I, we had a deep dive into her early days of becoming a short-term rental owner and host, and diving into some of the challenges that Cara has experienced along the way, as well as how she has navigated them. I know that you are going to probably be nodding your head and saying, "Yep, I've been there." And I also know that you're probably going to love her genuine heart for what she's doing. So without further ado, let's dive into my conversation with Cara. So today we are here with Cara Margraf, and we are going to have such a fun conversation. Cara, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, we are excited to have you. So I'm going to have you just start off by sharing with our listeners a little bit about who you are and where you live.
Okay. So my name is Cara Margraf, and I live full-time in Brighton, Michigan. And I own one condo down in Gulf Shores, Alabama. And I have been a condo owner now for a year and a half. Yes.
Amazing. Time flies.
Yes. I know. It's gone very quickly.
So I'm curious, the distance between where you live full-time and where your condo is located. What is the mileage distance, or what is the length of drive?
It is 15-hour drive plus 4 children in the car, plus many stops. It's a long drive. And we have done it now 4 times a year. I will count it 2 years because of trips prior to leading up to us actually purchasing the condo. So we've done it several times. I think I could drive it with our eyes closed.
Of course. So walk us back to the beginning. Talk to us a little bit about how you got started and how you selected your market.
Yes. So I will say I could be a little bit different than some of the people in the group are super numbers driven people, which I think is a very smart and scientific way to do it, considering I come from the nursing field. So data is something I love. But I actually bought more with my heart. So I have been going to my market since I was a teenager. I am 34 now. I had started traveling to Gulf Shores when I was 15 years old. I took my first trip down there. So it was something that I fell in love with as a child. And we took trips there almost every year. And then when I became a college student, my grandparents and my parents started snowbirding there. And as I started having children, my husband and my dad both work in business, and I was working per diem as a nurse, so had a very flexible schedule. They would send me down with my mom in the winters as a snowbird, because all the northern people snowbird down in Michigan. And so I would spend 6 to 8 weeks of the Michigan winters down in Gulf Shores in my 20s while I was having babies. And so from the age of 15 through my early 20s, I was spending months down in Gulf Shores. And so it was always a dream of my parents to own a place down there. And sadly, they got divorced during COVID. And I kind of took it upon myself after that period of time. My husband and I now have 4 kids. We really were like, what do we need to do to pull the trigger into purchasing our own place someday down there and making that a reality? So for me, it wasn't picking the market based on any sort of data other than my whole heart is down there.
Mm-hmm. I love that so much. And I think one of the things that a lot of people tend to miss is the very early stages of deciding where you want to invest is understanding, am I looking for a pure investment or am I looking for a lifestyle asset? And if you're looking for a lifestyle asset, that's okay. Like that is a-okay. Invest where your heart is. And you need to know, obviously, what you're getting into. I think where a lot of people may get tripped up is they don't go through that process and then their expectations aren't met on either side of the equation, So I love that you knew that from the get-go.
Yeah. And I think it can be scary because we dealt with the financial side of it kind of as we were investing with our heart, right? So the financial part of it does seem very scary to take, a huge chunk of your life savings and say, I want to do this lifestyle asset. Is this going to work financially for me? And you have to try to figure that out along the way. And there's an equal amount of that being very terrifying because I had to learn that as I went, where there are a lot of people that get into it and they have their numbers figured out and then they have to fall in love with it as they go. And I think it can work both ways, but I do think it's important that people have to see both sides of it, because if you just look at it with money too, and you're not in love with what you're doing, I will say, this isn't something that just does itself. You do have to love it. So I think that there are lots of days that when it is frustrating, it is because I love it that I keep going on. You know what I mean? So it is important to see both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And first of all, I also just want to say that I think you're probably going to have some listeners sitting on their couch thinking, girl, I am totally jealous that you were snowbirding at the beach at 22. But you know what? What a cool opportunity and what a neat thing that you were able to experience that with your mom. I know I wouldn't give anything in the world to be able to go to the beach with my mom again. And what a neat opportunity for you to create some very special memories with your kids, right?
Yeah. It was something that I am a mom first. I say that in anything I do, whether it's a standard nursing job I'm starting or this condo, whatever it might be. When you meet me, I say I'm a mom of 4 children under the age of 10. That is the very first thing I do. My husband has a pretty high level job that's very demanding. I'm usually the number one parent. If somebody is sick, if somebody's whatever, we've had to move quite a few times for his job. And so even though I've always had my nursing, my kids have always been number one, and they've been little during that period of time. So I was blessed to be able to be with them and work when it worked. So being a mom has always been my very first priority. And that is kind of how my mom instilled things when she raised me, was making it work being a stay-at-home mom. And she went back to work kind of later in life as a nurse also. And so it was important to me to also have that generational thing. Like when we would go down there for those 6 to 8 weeks, they had great grandparents down there. We were doing dinners with great grandparents at the beach. You can't take that away. Those memories are built into my kids' core. And I think it's very special. So when they say, we're going to the beach house, that's just something that they grow up knowing. And I wanted to carry that on, even though neither set of grandparents are able to go there anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's important it was very important for me to carry on that legacy.
You're carrying the torch, girlfriend. Yeah. I love that. So you're about 1.5 years in now. Talk to us a little bit about some of the challenges that you've encountered. I mean, I think obviously it's one of the most rewarding things to have a property, not only for your family to be able to enjoy, but to also be a part of someone else's family, making memories. And, as you mentioned, this is not for the faint of heart. Like, there are true challenges. It is work. Talk to us about some of the things that you've encountered and how you've navigated them.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into this. So my very first piece of advice would be, don't go into it if you think that it's going to do it by itself. That's my very first piece of advice. You have to have a heart for taking care of people. And I would say that naturally, I love to take care of people. I take care of my children. And as a nurse, I take care of people. So if there's something that I do well, it's that. And it was me learning to be a businesswoman with this part of it. And so from the beginning, from where I was a year ago to a year and a half ago, I've gotten probably a little harder than I was when I started. I take things very personally. So any sort of guest complaint, any sort of anything, I would run to my mentor. I would be very upset, take it all really personally. And I let a lot more things roll off my shoulders now because it comes with time. So my biggest piece of advice is learning to host your guests. It doesn't happen overnight. You're not going to do it perfectly from the beginning. You're going to do your absolute best. It's just going to take going through scenarios to get better at it. And I think that being a good host comes with being genuine. So I like to pride myself on genuine hosting. I genuinely care that the people that are coming to my condo truly feel like they're on a family vacation. I don't want my guests feel like they're being watched by Big Brother or that they're under a million different rules. You know, yes, there are rules that have to be followed, but I want them to feel well taken care of by me because I know how much money, I know how much time and packing and everything it takes a family to go on vacation and how much work that is for myself to do it. So when my guests come in, like people talk about their guest avatar, I market to families just like myself. And I want those people to come in and I genuinely care about taking care of them. So I feel like from then to now, it takes time and you have to just really be patient. You're going to put a lot more work into that first year. And then when you build your reputation, that pays off.
Oh, yeah.
So you just have to know that every single review and heart and time that you pour into it, you are building your reputation. And as that reputation gets stronger and stronger, you're able to kind of never sit back, but you're able to let go a little bit more and let your process follow and let your reputation speak for itself. And I just think being genuine is the best thing. Going to like hard times, the hardest situation we dealt with this year is we had a chargeback case.
Oh, girl, don't get me started on chargebacks. Yes, so, I have dealt with that myself. Before we go into chargebacks, I want to ask you something about the genuineness, because I think that that's such an important point. And I'm curious, have you ever stayed with a host where you felt like they weren't genuine? What was that like for you? I've had that experience.
So I'm really like 100% genuine when I answer this question. Even though I am an Airbnb owner, I've never stayed at an Airbnb.
There you go.
I have never stayed in an Airbnb. I knew very little about Airbnb prior to getting into this whole thing. And I had stayed with Verbo once and it was fine. I think it was actually owned by like a management company. When I would stay in Gulf Shores, we would stay with some of the big marketed management companies. We got to know owners directly. It's that direct booking route. Yeah. So that's kind of how I actually, even though my whole business is built on Airbnb, I have never stayed in an Airbnb. But what I will say, I know I should probably do that.
Might be good.
I've got those Superhost credits. I should probably use them. What I will say though is that I personally know some other hosts that I run in similar circles with who do things differently than me. And I can't say that I agree with how they all do things.
Right.
And there's that delicate balance of a owner, and I do the same thing. I use my property for a month out of the year. Close to a month out of the year. And I also send other friends and family to my property. So if you add it up, my property is being used by people that I know for a significant amount of time. There are times that I go into the condo and I panic. I go, that's my stuff. What's missing? Why is it damaged? Owners don't love to give over control of their condo to other people. And they don't like things getting ruined. And there is a delicate balance. And so sometimes that bleeds over into how people host. And that comes through in the emails, the messaging. There is no, it does. It does. The reviews, the amount of bookings that you get, it comes through.
Yeah.
And I just know other hosts that I have kind of seen who have had maybe some issues and things like that. Like I can just tell that it could be their approach.
Yeah. I think that's a really great point. It could very well be that their intention is good. And maybe even what they're saying is good in their guest messaging or in their communications with guests. But if we position things in a harsh way or in a cynical way, or we're thinking cynically about what our guests are doing in our properties, it really shows, right? And I think it goes back to the point about being genuine. You truly do have a passion for, having family memories being made at your property. You're living that yourself and you want your guests to experience that as well. One of the things that I have experienced as a guest in someone else's property is a lack of genuineness in all the pre-communications and what was actually delivered on site. So time of arrival, it's, oh my gosh, we'll be there for anything you need. Just reach out to us if you have anything that pops up. This particular stay, the air conditioning broke. Do you think I could get a hold of that host? No, like for 2 days, right? So I also think it's really important that if you're going to position yourself as a host who's going to be attentive to your guests, that you actually should follow through on that.
100%. I'll say staying with big management companies, that doesn't happen. I stayed in condos for 6 to 8 weeks at a time where the couch is basically on the ground. The AC units, something's clearly wrong with it. Those are managed completely different when you talk about Airbnb standards. Those are not the same thing. Yeah. And so asking, those people to come in and fix things, and then they have to get approval for owners, that doesn't happen like within a week, let alone when my guests are messaging me on a Sunday at 11 o'clock. And I am on a FaceTime with them, telling them how to work the TV, trying to tell them I've got the handyman coming during the Super Bowl. That happened this year because a fire alarm thing was chirping and the battery needed to be changed. You truly do there is no off time. You are on all the time. It doesn't matter if your kids have a game. It doesn't matter if it's a Sunday. If you're truly going to be there for them, you can't. I did learn this. Like, you can't always promise them a specific time or a specific fix exactly when you think you want it to happen, because especially at the beach, it runs on beach time.
Yeah, absolutely.
But as long as you are communicating with them that, hey, I have called this person. This is when the time frame they think they're going to come. They respect any amount of communication. Airbnb guests, because that's primarily who I deal with, they have a high standard. And so you have to uphold that. If I was staying somewhere with 4 kids and I couldn't get a hold of a host because something colossal was broken, I would be angry.
Yeah.
Be very angry.
Yes, you would be. But I also think too, something that you just pointed out, and this is something I'm very passionate about. And Cara, I know that you give a lot of time working in your business. And now as a businesswoman, you're working on your business too, which is amazing. I also just want to give a quick highlight though. If there are any listeners that are listening or watching this where you're like, I don't have the time to do that. You can absolutely self-manage and build a team around you so that you are not tied to your phone 24/7. I manage 40 plus properties and I spend less than 10 hours every week working in my business. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to anyone who might be like, ooh, I love the idea of growing my short-term rental portfolio or buying a property at the beach or in the mountains, but I just don't feel like I have the time to add something else.
Right.
You can get some really phenomenal time back when you leverage systems and teams.
I agree with that, because I would say, looking back on that first 6 months where, we were taking a lot more trips, we were a lot more hands-on. A lot of it is what you make it, right? We had a lot more projects we wanted to have under our belt to make the condo perfect. I'm a human being. So getting it where we wanted it to be, building our reputation to where I'm at now, I do not spend nearly as much amount of time every single week on the condo. I have significantly taken a step back and let my systems run its course. And I spend time, managing my price slabs and what's going on in the market. I'm going into my messaging and making sure that everything's looking okay and changing my pictures. I'm doing, your basic things now. But we're nothing like it was in the very first steps of launching a property and launching your brand. Because once your ball gets rolling and you have built that team around you, my team down in Alabama is my everything. I trust them. We work very well together. They know that they're the heartbeat of my business. And they're contacting me if something major is going on. Otherwise, I'm not really sticking my nose and micromanaging them if I don't need to, only if there's problems coming up. And we're at a point now where, I have people reach out to me asking, if, there's virtual assistants that have reached out, or revenue managers that have reached out. People, once you build enough into your brand, they start reaching out to you asking if you want to pay them, take over. So, and I still have time, so it's not needed for my property. But for people who are really, they want to do this and they are really busy, there are so many options out there. And as long as you dedicate that first portion to get yourself up and running, it is what you make it after that point. And as long as you're someone who can trust your team, which I think is very important, you're able to step back. And like now when we go, like we're about to go down for Christmas break for 2 weeks, we don't have any more projects. We're back to vacationing again. And we get to roll in, and I don't have to worry about stuff as much as I did a year ago.
Sure.
So
that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. So talk to us about your chargeback situation.
Oh, yeah.
Inside scoop here.
Yeah. So I don't feel like this is something that people talk about a lot. And it can be very scary, and it happened to us. So I like to be very transparent about just the bad things that could happen to you, just so that when you are self-managing, you can make yourself aware of what you need to be prepared for. So we had a guest the first summer in, and I was a new host at that time. So I was trying to be very, host her well and, oblige what she needed. And she needed to change her dates several different times. And I was trying to work with her. So I went above and beyond my cancellation policy, and we were in peak season. And so we moved her dates around several times. I had a ton of communication with her. I started to see red flags on, okay, this just seems not like what I was dealing with other guests. She's wanting to move things around a lot. I'm trying to get her to commit to specific dates. She's really steamrolling all the communication that I have. And in my policy, we use owner res for our communication and stuff. It states that we will always try to work with you. And if we book you on other dates, we will give you X% back. And if we rebook your nights, we will, give you that money as well. But at any point in time, if we have to revert back to our original cancellation policy, that is what we will do. And so that is what is stated. So be very clear everywhere in your whatever platform you use for booking on your cancellation policies. I just want to say that as my first thing, because what you have in writing is very important. And she had already signed. We require our guests to have a rental agreement signed. She had all of that signed. She had a security deposit signed. Everything was, all of our legal paperwork was done. And lots of communication got really confusing. And so she ended up, I said, I really need an answer from you by this specific date because we need to go back to our policy. And so she said, I cannot come. I said, okay, here is your refund per our cancellation policy. When I rebook these days for you, I will let you know the extent of what you are owed. I let her know we did rebook the dates. Here on top of that is what you are owed. She's not happy with what we rebooked the dates at. I said, I'm sorry, this is just how this works. But you got above and beyond.
I tried. Sorry, girlfriend.
I tried. So cut to, things kind of settled. And I said, okay, well, we got through that. I'm brand new at this. This is my first busy season, And so that was in like June or July. And we go out to dinner. My husband and I are on date night. It's a whole nother thing. Pick and choose when you talk about your properties on date. And we started talking some business finances at dinner. And he goes, will you check, the business, whatever. And I said, yeah, sure. So I pull up our business banking account. And all of a sudden, I'm missing a couple $1,000s. Which when you're a new business, that's not cool.
Right.
And I panic at dinner. Literally, I start bawling. And we're now into November.
Okay.
So we're several months later.
Right.
And I'm just like, what's going on? What's going on? And the number looks familiar to me. The amount of money looks just very familiar to me. So I go in and I see an email that I have been hit with a chargeback for a fraudulent charge as goods not described. And I'm like, 6 months later? Whoa. That hit me out of nowhere. And at that point, there was no other communication from this person for that 6 months period of time. And I like to think like if you were going to do that, I probably would have just worked with you because I don't want to go through this process. But she ended up, to me, it's more of a case of scamming. So that's what I would tell people to watch out for, because she not only made half of her reservation money plus what she made off the dates, but then she got the whole reservation money back again. So she made a lot of money off of us. And as a new business, we can't afford that. Like, we're just trying to break even,
Yeah.
And so we really panicked. I remember leaving the dinner bawling, and I was like, great, this is awful, and they didn't know what to do. And so we called our bank, and our bank said, this happens all the time. We're going to take care of you. No problems at all. And so essentially what our bank did, this was several days of dealing with this. Our bank put a hold on our third party that we use is Stripe, which is very easy to work with. Not understanding the full thing. So that was my other thing, is make sure you're using a bank that understands STRs and what you're doing. So at the point, we were using a credit union for that money, and they really did not understand. They put a hold on Stripe, and I was like, oh, Stripe didn't like that.
Yeah.
And so end all be all is that did not work. And Stripe ended up, any bookings that I got, direct bookings, security deposit money, any of that, Stripe started holding all of my incoming money until they got that money back. because my bank and that could have gotten me in a lot of trouble with Stripe. And I rely on them for they're solely just the go-between. You are dealing with the guest's credit card company at the end of the day if this happens. We're not dealing with the third party between. And so what I want people to know is that if this happens to you, at this point had gotten too hostile between the guest, I wasn't going to deal with her anymore. You're specifically dealing with their bank. Be prepared to fight a chargeback fee because there isn't any go-between between the banks. You are going to have to go through the process. And the process takes several months. And depending on what code they have put against you, whether it's goods is not described or any other type of code, make sure you're looking up what is the bank going to want to see from you. And really take your time because I think you get X amount of days. I don't remember how many it is, 60 to 90 days, something like that, to prepare your documents.
Girl, if it's 60 to 90 days, mine is usually like 14 days.
Oh, mine was longer. It was it was a longer period of time. Don't quote me though on how many days it was, but it was longer than that. I sat for a long time printing out every email between her and I. All the legal agreements, all of my owner res sheets on all of the charges, all of the Stripe communication on what I refunded her, what she was owed, what I rebooked the dates at, what I gave money back to her at, what was synced out of my bank account. I submitted 35 pages of paper to that bank on top of a written table of contents on what you will find on each page that was then highlighted every single important piece of information. And I didn't ask for any of this extra work. I didn't do anything wrong, but just be prepared because at the end of the day, because you didn't do anything wrong, as long as you're following your process, you can win. And we did win, but it took time and just be prepared. But it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare and it took a long time.
I will share with you. I did a podcast episode on this a while back, but I was hit by a fraudulent band of criminals who came and stayed in my properties. And they would go, I have several properties in Myrtle Beach. They would go from one property to the next. And long story short, they did chargeback after chargeback after chargeback, to the tune of $15,000. Okay. I called the local authorities, the police, and the scary thing is they didn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. They were like, no, you need to, if you're an online business and people are making reservations online, you have to call your local jurisdiction. So I called my local police department, tried to report these individuals. They didn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. So in addition to what you just described, it's, I believe, extremely important to be an advocate for yourself. Don't be afraid to stand up for yourself because unfortunately, there are individuals out there, and they're few and far between, but that are dishonest, right? And so we have to protect ourselves. I also think it's really important to utilize a service like Superhog. Since my chargeback situation, I put Superhog into play into my business, and it's made a tremendously great impact to reduce that risk. Yep.
Yeah. And I will say that to anyone that sounds really terrifying and is hard. I cried so many times and I got very frustrated. I came out of the situation stronger and I learned a lot from the situation. And when you're talking 60 something guests in a whole year, of which almost all of them are wonderful, you are going to have a couple bad eggs here and there, and they skate by. And I mean, she gave me no other reason to think of a red flag. She signed everything else. You know what I mean? And just sometimes it happens. But those things, they are learning moments. And so sitting on the other end of it today, as hard as it is, I'm stronger for it now. And when it comes to guests that say things to me like, I don't feel comfortable giving you my ID. I don't feel comfortable signing this. I'm not the guest or the host anymore that says, oh, okay, well, I say, well, maybe my property's not for you. You know, so it's just learning.
Yep.
So, but it's important that people know, you know, be prepared for all situations.
For sure. And I think a couple of additional call outs that you mentioned already, making sure that you're printing out or saving to a PDF and submitting the paperwork, all the communications, so that the bank can understand, hey, this person did book the property. It's not someone just with someone's random credit card, that they're
making sure too that your credit card, that you're using, whatever Stripe or any kind of servicing platform, that ours is listed under our LLC, that is very clear that the communication is all coming from one place. And that is something that I'm big on, that the guest communication is coming from Sandcastle Stays, and that the credit card is being charged under our LLC, and that is all maintained under the same thing, and nothing looks like it's wavering from me personally. So I think that's also really important too.
Yeah. The other thing I just wanted to call out is the guest ID. As you mentioned, some guests get a little funny about having to send in their driver's license. And I think perhaps, for good reason, because of all the instances that you see these days with people being hacked or identities being stolen. But again, just want to give a shout out to our friends at Superhog. There are very secure ways that people can submit their IDs so they're not going through email, right? But it gives you the verification that you need to make sure that you feel comfortable.
100%. And we live in a world where, as my personal self, I would question it too. And it could come off very, off-putting as a host. Why do you need all this? Airbnb vets me, other people vet me. Why? So I understand that. But there are several safe ways to utilize that information that it's not to any extracurricular benefit other than I'm keeping my property and myself safe. So, and at the end of the day, keeping them safe too.
Yep. Absolutely. One of the things that I'm curious about, you mentioned that your hubby has a high demand job, that, oftentimes you are playing lead household maker. What has it been like having a business with your spouse? Have you noticed anything that's different, or have you noticed any challenges that didn't bubble up before because of the fact that, oh, hey, we now have a business together. We're not just married with kids.
100%. That has been an interesting learning curve in so many different ways. For good and bad. So we've learned a lot of things about each other. He is I don't know how to describe him. He doesn't overly love to take risks, even though he has a high demand job. And so I was the pusher for the condo. And I really had to convince him to take this risk. And when I wish he could be here today, because he will say, there are times that I get cold feet still, and I go, did we make the right decision? Was this the right long-term choice for us? And because it is, it can be a lot of work. You get overwhelmed, and he'll go, I think this is the best decision we ever made. This is the best decision that we ever made. I'm so happy that, you voiced your opinion and spoke up and said we should do this, because he is not one. He likes to dream about the risk, but he doesn't not necessarily want to take it. And he's like, I'm glad that you pushed us out of our comfort zone to do it. But that being said, you still have to push along the way. And so men and women think very differently. And, it's a lot of money to invest up front.
Mhm.
And so I'm the one that primarily did a lot of the beginning research, the podcasts and the books that you listen to, that kind of everyone sort of that is beginning should go through and just start listening, whether it's your podcasts or Avery Carl's book, just
Mhm.
the beginning steps.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
what I started with.
Yeah.
So I sort of did all that and relayed that information to him.
Mhm.
And, after getting over the initial investment, that is a lot of money. And I think if you aren't the one listening to all of those things, I think he got into a point where he's like, okay, well, it should be doing its thing. And then you go, no, that's not how it works. You have to keep, if you should choose, like our place wasn't brand new. I wanted a certain aesthetic to it.
Mhm.
And I had to push for him to be on the same page. Not every guy out there, some are, but he's not necessarily agrees with the fact that I wanted to buy brand new couches and brand new art and brand new patio furniture and a brand new rug. He's like, why do we need those things? The ones we have are not broken. Why do we need aerial photography?
Mhm.
And I said, I'm studying Airbnb every day. I'm sitting on beach host meetup calls and I'm talking to STR hosts, and I'm the one sitting in these meetings, and you need your property to stand out. And if we just sit back, you're not going to get your return on investment. We need to invest in the property. And so those at times where they were fights that we had about, and then once we got to the condo and we would put the time in, I mean, he would be the one doing these projects.
Yeah.
I mean, we would go down there. When we went down to move into the condo, it was over Memorial Weekend. We drove 15 hours straight with a U-Haul attached to our car of all the things I ordered on Wayfair. And him and I worked sun up to sundown till 2 a.m. We'd get back up at 5 a.m. I've never worked so hard in my life to turn a place over once I convinced him of that. And he built everything. He painted everything. He put so much blood, sweat, and tears also into it. And then he said, I see exactly what you mean. The photos are beautiful. The aesthetic is beautiful. When I see us come up on page number 1, I understand what you mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's learning that song and dance.
Sure. And it's also learning how to communicate with your spouse in the way that's going to resonate with them.
Yeah.
Right.
100%. And there's points where he's very busy and I'm very busy. And as the condo is not as much work for me right now, I've taken on more with my kids and their school. And I've had to ask him to step up. I don't have him do guest communication. That is all me. But we've had to decipher what our roles are.
Yeah.
Because it's a team effort. I can't do it all myself. I deal with reservations. I deal with all of the pricing. I deal with the guests. But he has to deal with maintenance. He has to deal with, he's a business person. So he deals with all of our numbers, our big numbers, our goals. We have to have meetings about where we're at. And we learned that we don't do that on date night.
Amen. Amen.
We don't do it on date night.
I love it. Cara, that's so good. Okay, I want to move to the lightning round. And I'm going to ask you to answer a few questions with the very first thing that comes to mind. First question is, where is your favorite place to vacation?
Oh, that isn't Gulf Shores?
You can say Gulf Shores if you want.
Gulf Shores is my favorite place to vacation.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It 100% is.
All right. Now, next question. What's one place you've never been that you want to visit?
Hawaii.
Oh, girl. It's so beautiful.
Hawaii. Definitely Hawaii.
So good. So good. One of the members of the accelerator program, she just got finished with a year-long trip, kind of traveling all over the US and Mexico. And she was going to move back into her primary home, and someone asked to rent it out as a midterm for several months. And so she and her husband just picked up and went to Hawaii for 5 months. So I'm living vicariously through Ashley
Wow.
Arthur. Ashley, if you're listening, girlfriend, we love you.
That sounds incredible.
I know. I was just on a call with her last week, and I'm like, show me the backyard and show me the blue skies.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Yes, it would be Hawaii.
All right. What's one thing you know now that you wished you knew when you were starting out in the world of short-term rentals?
Have a good mentor. Have a good mentor. Ready to go. Have a good group of people, because there are times that people meet me and they go, "Oh, your husband bought you a beach house and you put it on Facebook? That's so cute." And I go, "No, that's not what this is." There's a whole group of strong, powerful women who work together. And there is, when I start talking about what actually goes into it, because when I was thinking of doing it, I did think it was simpler than it is. And when I got connected with your guys' group and started sitting in on meetings and all of the things, I learned that there is so much more to it. And when you do it, you have to have a community you can lean on. And so even though I had an idea, I didn't. And so and when people are very interested, I share very candidly with my friends and people on my social media what I'm doing. And the genuine consensus is that, like, you have a beach house and it's fun, you just put it online. And that is not at all what it is. So it would be surround yourself with a good group of people.
Amen.
Yes.
Amen, sister. I couldn't agree more. And, this can feel like a very lonely business, because we can do it from anywhere. We can do it from our kids' soccer game. We can do it, from the comfort of our car. If we're a passenger, hopefully you're not messaging people while you're driving. But I may or may not be known to do that, send messages while I'm driving.
Yeah.
I talk into my phone though, so I feel like that should count.
People always know. They're like, "You're on Airbnb, aren't you?" I'm like, "Yep, I'm dealing with guests." It's everywhere.
That's awesome. But it can feel very lonely. And I know for me, and the people within our community, it is so wonderful to be able to pick up the phone and call someone and know that they know what you're going through, like as a support system. Yeah. And that's a two-way street. It's incredibly powerful. All right. What is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
The best piece of advice I have ever been given would be to rest in off season. To truly allow yourself to rest in off season. I'm in a vacation. I know not everybody invests in a vacation market. And I'm in a vacation market. And so we have a very busy season. And busy season falls in summertime when I am off with my own kids vacationing. And so it can get very stressful. We're turning over multiple times a week. And when you are a type A personality, and it's the adrenaline, it's what I love about it and I'm addicted to. It's dinging. My phone is dinging all the time. The bookings are coming in. The money's coming in. It's stuff all the time is going on. And then you're in November, like right now. Right. And it's calm. But as an Airbnb host, you're like, is something wrong?
Right.
What's going on? And I did the same thing last year, and I was told, like, you let yourself rest in busy season. And when you go visit your property, and I actually also have to give this advice to the same people I talk to, fall in love and enjoy your property when you get to go there.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's the motivator for why we do what we do. So my biggest advice that I've been given and I will give to other people is that use your property if you can go there, if it's an asset to you in any way, shape, or form, or you get an off season, to truly allow yourself to have a break, or to, when you do go there, soak it all in and fall in love with it. So that can be your motivator to push yourself and refill your tank when it is time to like put your nose to the grind and work hard, because that is how it works for me.
Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. Last question. What's one thing and or person that you're grateful for today?
Oh, I am going to go ahead and shout out my girl, Alicia.
I knew you were going to say that. Alicia loves you.
Hi, Alicia is my girl. I've made little nods to her throughout. She is, I'm sure, well known to anyone listening to this podcast. Alicia Wright is my girl. She is someone I have known since I went to college, back at Michigan State University. We went to nursing school together. And so I've known her for a very, very long time. We both live in Michigan, and we reconnected. We were online together, and I was down in Gulf Shores, and I was like, how is she doing this? And I'll tell you, her and I talk every single day on Marco Polo. And if we talk 10 times, maybe one time we're talking about STR. You know, we're the type of friends that we're both moms and we're very similar people. And we pick each other up when we're down, and we lift each other up when we need to. And she is a motivator for me, and I hope vice versa. And I love her very much, and she loves you very much. And I'm very grateful for her every single day. And so I'm going to shout her out today because she is.
Yeah. And I'm gonna second that, because Alicia is a very, very valued member of my team and an incredible resource inside our accelerator program. And so, Alicia, we're just going to love on you for a hot minute, because not only do you mean a ton to Cara, you mean a ton to me and to so many other people. So thanks for all you do, Alicia.
Yes, she is an amazing human. I love her very, very much.
She is. Cara, thank you so much for being here. This was a long time coming, and I'm so excited that we finally got to do this. And best of luck for your future endeavors. I know whatever you do, you're going to be amazingly successful.
Thank you. Thank you so very much for having me. This was so much fun.
Now, before you go, I want to give a quick shout out to an amazing lady inside the Female Short-Term Rental Investors Facebook group. Just 2 days ago, Sarah Elizabeth posted a shout out to my queens. She said, "Can I just say how much I appreciate the positivity and supportive dialogues in this group? You ladies rock." Well, Sarah, you rock as well. Thank you so much for being so proactive and sharing that positive feedback. That's one of the most special things I love about our Facebook community, and I'm glad you're a part of it. And with that, my friends, this wraps up this episode. I hope you have a wonderful week ahead, and I will see you very soon.